It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the San Francisco Giants. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Monday evening to you, wherever you may be. We're at Dodger Stadium ready to break the seal on a 6-game homestand against the Giants and the Arizona Diamondbacks. You probably know this will be a rematch because the 3-game series in San Francisco just a week ago went directly to San Francisco. They are 3-0 against the Dodgers in the 19 meetings between the two teams. Interestingly enough, if you go back to 2010, you'll find out that over that stretch, the Dodgers have won just one more game than San Francisco, but the Giants have been world champions 3 times. By the way, we start the evening on a bad note. It looks like right-hander Brandon McCarthy might very well be finished for the year. You may remember he came out with a tightness in the elbow. Now they've advanced that to the UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament. A lot of times that means Tommy John surgery. We're waiting for the announcement perhaps before the night is over. Meanwhile, it's Lincecum and Anderson, each with a record of 1-1. Lincecum beat Anderson, and lifetime Tim is 10-7 against the Dodgers. We'll get to the ball game and a whole lot more coming up right after this.
In Chavez Ravine, trying to win 8 straight at Dodger Stadium, and what better opponent to do it against than their rival, the San Francisco Giants. Hello, everybody, and welcome inside Dodger Stadium. I'm Alana Rizzo. The biggest news of the day for the Los Angeles Dodgers, of course, veteran right-hander Brandon McCarthy has a tear in his right elbow. The UCL is torn, and he will be on the disabled list, out for pretty much 14 to 15 months out for this year. And unfortunately, Brandon McCarthy joins quite a list of people already on the disabled list. Time now to bring you our injury report, brought to you by Curlin Job. Of course, Brandon McCarthy out for the year. Kenley Jansen, the Dodgers closer, he did throw a pen yesterday, and hopefully he'll be facing live hitters this week. Brandon League was moved to the 60-day DL because of a shoulder issue. He was moved to the 60-day to make room for Scott Baker. Joel Peralta going on the 15-day DL with a neck strain. Yasiel Puig, the only position player on the disabled list right now with that left hamstring strain. And Hyun Jin Ryu still on that 15-day DL with a shoulder issue. They do not expect Hyun Jin Ryu to come back until at least the end of May, beginning of June. So a lot of guys on that disabled list. Back in the studio, John and Jerry. The big news, of course, Brandon McCarthy.
And now, it's time for the starting lineup.
Evening to you wherever you may be. Home sweet home. That's the feeling for the Dodgers, trying to turn it around. They've lost 4 of their last 6. They have lost 6 out of 9 on the road this year. But at home, they have a 7-game winning streak, and their record is 8-1. Brett Anderson trying to turn things against the Giants. And, of course, for Bruce Bochy, a ball club that has improved dramatically of late. Beat the Dodgers 3 in a row in San Francisco. They've won 4 of the last 5. Here is the Giant lineup. Nori Aoki in left field. Joe Panik at second base. Angel Pagan in center field. And Buster Posey playing first base. Justin Maxwell in right field. Andrew Susac, the catcher. Casey McGee at third base. Brandon Crawford, the shortstop. And Tim Lincecum on the mound. Brett Anderson, with a record of 1-1, lost to the Giants and Lincecum last time out in San Francisco. And for Brett Anderson, trying to turn things around. Interesting thing about Brett, first time through the lineup, the opposition is hitting 192. And then the second time through the lineup, the opposition is hitting 444. One of his problems for Anderson, even though he is left-handed, he's been hurt by left-handed batters. The left-hand hitters are batting .409 against him. Of course, throughout his career, left-hand hitters are batting .305. So he's going to get a dose of that right now. Nori Aoki, a left-hand batter, hitting .303, checking in. Struggling a bit of late, and the first pitch is taken for a strike. Aoki is one of those players with 20 or more hits and 10 walks. That puts him ahead of people like Alonso, Votto, and Markakis. The next pitch is low, 1 ball and 1 strike the count. So Nori Aoki from Japan, as you certainly might guess, father in insurance business. And the 1-1 pitch on the way, fastball on the inside corner for a strike. So Brett Anderson, 6'4", 230, out of Fulshear, Texas. Slider down and away, and they count 2 balls and 2 strikes. Aoki at 5'8" gives you a tough strike zone. Wide open stance, but then he strides into the pitch. 2-2 pitch on the way. Check swing foul into the stands. And Aoki is still there. If Aoki gets on the bases, he has done the bulk of the running for the Giants. He has stolen 5 out of 7. He was hit once during the recent Dodgers series up there at AT&T Park. 2-2 on the way. Breaking ball slapped wide at third by a diving Uribe. Rollins throws late. And Aoki opens up with an infield single. So Aoki, a slap and run hitter, slapped it just by Uribe, who was shortened up. Rollins had to come way over to backhand, and Aoki, being left-handed, had the edge and beats the play. So a leadoff single by Aoki, and that will bring up the number 2 hitter, Joe Panik. Panik had a game-winning fly ball to beat the Dodgers in San Francisco. He's a very creative hitter, and he's only had 1 year. I mean, he was outstanding last year, and he's hitting .303 right now. Joe takes low, ball 1. The other night in the extra inning game in Colorado, he called it himself. It was not bought by Boshi. A safety squeeze. He put it on and squeezed in the winning run. So they have themselves quite a bright young find in Joe Panik. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Anderson looks over at first, and too much time. Panik backs out. So you get the idea right away about Anderson having trouble with left-hand batters, and the first one gets an infield single. And now Brett working on another left-hand hitter in Panik. Angel Pagan on deck. Breaking ball swung on, fly ball into the powder blue. Peterson started back. Jock comes in to make the catch. 1 out, and Pagan coming up. We can take a look at the Dodgers with the leather, and they shape up Gonzalez and Kendrick, Rollins, Uribe, Crawford, Peterson, and Ethier, with the battery of Anderson and Grandal. Angel Pagan has 27 hits. The only problem when you're hitting third in the lineup, all but 6 of the 27 hits singles. Who leads the National League in singles? An old Dodger, a favorite here, D. Gordon, has 27 singles. Anderson goes to first. Aoki back to the bag. Remember, he's stolen 5 of the 9 bases for the Giants. Meanwhile, Pagan checking in. When Pagan is in the lineup, no matter how you cut it, the Giants are far better than when he is not. The pitch is high, ball 1. With Pagan in the lineup, the Giants are 202 and 154. When he is not in the lineup, they are 87 and 95. So he is quite a spear carrier. And there goes Aoki. Good jump and a drive to center. It's over Peterson's head. Jock goes back, reaches up and makes the catch. Now they have a chance, not much, to double up Aoki, and they do. The brilliant young center fielder, Jock Peterson, fooled everybody as he caught a ball over his head and turns it into a dazzling double play. With Aoki going, he had already rounded and had to go, and Rollins' throw beats him, and at the end of half an inning, no score. And of course, turnabout is fair play. Remember that the Dodgers hit into 4 double plays in one of the games in San Francisco. So thanks to the heroics of Jock Peterson, the Dodgers stopped the Giants in their tracks. The Dodger lineup: Jimmy Rollins at short, Andre Ethier in right, Adrian Gonzalez at first, and Howie Kendrick at second base. Yasmani Grandal, the catcher, Carl Crawford in left, Juan Uribe at third, Jock Peterson, and then Brett Anderson. Tim Lincecum picked up a victory against the Dodgers, works it away, ball 1. He's certainly having a better April than he did a year ago. In April last year, he was 1-1 and an earned run average of about 6. He's high and away to Rollins' ball 2. This year he's 1-1 and his earned run average is 2. The 2-0 pitch on the way, in for a strike. It's amazing when you think about it. Brett Anderson, a left-hander, can't get left-hand hitters out. Tim Lincecum, a right-hand batter, is getting all the left-handers out. The right-handers against Lincecum are batting .324. The left-handers .148. So they each ought to teach the other. The 3-1 pitch on the way is swung on and missed, 3-2. Jimmy Rollins struggling, and he would be the first to admit it as he checks in at the plate. Jimmy from either side of the plate hitting just .186. 3-2. Lincecum works and it's low, and Rollins is aboard with a walk. We can set the Giants defensively for you. Boshy's boys with Posey and Panic. Crawford the shortstop, McGee at third, Aoki, Pagan, and Maxwell. Susac behind the plate, and Tim Lincecum on the mound. Beautiful evening. The temperature 77 degrees. Not a whisper of a breeze. Flags hanging limply in center. Big crowd on hand. And Lincecum now ready to work to Ethier. Running over to the bag is Rollins, beating the throw easily. Rollins has stolen 3, but he's been caught twice. Ethier, meanwhile, really doing a great job, and just when the Dodgers need him, now that Yasiel Puig is down. Rollins bluffs. Ethier takes low. That brought the catcher Susac up in a hurry. A couple of more things about Tim Lincecum. Interestingly enough, the first 6 hitters in the opposing lineup are batting only .200. 7 through 9 will shock you. They're hitting .462. And the one thing you don't want to do is go after the first pitch with Lincecum. If a hitter swings at the first pitch, the batters overall batting average is .056, 1 for 18. So you want to settle in and get deeper into the count. 1 ball and no strikes to Ethier. Lincecum running. There goes Rollins. Line drive. One-handed by Posey, who steps on the bag for a double play. It was hit to his gloved side. Otherwise, it's down the line for an extra base hit. So the boys have come ready to play. Peterson, Rollins in the top of the first. And now Posey, a diving catch, and just touches the bag for the double play. It is always a good one between the Giants and the Dodgers. And we have a great opening act here. Here comes Adrian Gonzalez. 2 out, bases empty. They put the shift on. Crawford goes beyond the bag. Panic a good 10 to 15 feet out in right field. And the outfield straight away. Adrian fouls it back. And the count 0-1. Another thing about Lincecum, when there are men on base, he just seems to really toughen up. Right now, Gonzalez, who usually sees somebody on base, up there with 2 out, bases empty, change, curveball misses, and they count 1 ball and 1 strike. Talking about Ethier and that first pitch, Andre took the first pitch and then hit the bullet on the second pitch. And again, if the hitter takes the first pitch, they're hitting .326 against Lincecum. 1-1 pitch, chased and missed. That might have been out of the strike zone. 1-2 the count. When Lincecum faced the Dodgers in San Francisco, it was kind of an interesting, rare game. As Jock Peterson looks on, off speed, a looper off the glove of a leaping Crawford, and on out into center field for a base hit. So Adrian Gonzalez singles off Crawford's glove, and the batter will be Howie Kendrick. Crawford got the webbing of the mitt on the glove. A lot of times you can't get your fingers all the way up in the glove, so the webbing is very loose, and there was no way to control it, and it popped out. So here's Kendrick. Here's the odd thing about Lincecum when he beat the Dodgers in San Francisco. Kendrick waiting, swings, ground ball, base hit into left field. So that line drive catch by Buster Posey is huge. With 2 out, the Dodgers come up with back-to-back singles, and Yasmani Grandal coming up. In looking at Lincecum, in the 6 innings he pitched, he did not retire the team in order in any inning. But remember, he got 4 double plays, including 2 after the leadoff man got on, and 2 double plays ended the inning. Well, the double play tonight came immediately after the leadoff man got on. And one other important thing, he got 5 outs when he was behind the hitter in the count. Grandal looks at a breaking ball for a strike, and the count 0-1. So what an inning. Aoki gets a base hit. With 1 out, Aoki's going. Pagan hits one over Peterson's head. Jock makes a great running catch and turns it into a double play. So Pagan losing an extra base hit, and the Giants losing a run. And then in the bottom of the first, Rollins walks. Ethier crushes a line drive. Posey on the glove side dives and snares it, taking a double and an RBI away from Andre. And now you have back-to-back singles by Gonzalez and Kendrick. So here's Grandal working on a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Lincecum staring down, getting a sign. He's made 15 pitches so far. There's 1-1 pitch on the way. Grandal looks at a strike, and they count 1-2. In looking at Lincecum's past against the Dodgers, Rollins has never hit him. Uribe has 2 home runs and 3 doubles against him. Andre Ethier had 3 doubles and 2 home runs as well. Grandal, big chopper to the short right fielder, and Panic from the grass throws him out. So no runs, 2 hits, the line drive caught by Posey, a huge play, and at the end of a terrific inning, no score. The Dodgers, as you may or may not know, have made an incredible number of roster moves considering the fact they've only played 18 games. And the Dodgers and Tampa Bay Rays have made a somewhat incredible 45 roster moves already. Posey bangs one to right center, but it's slicing, and it turns out to be a room service fly ball to Andre Ethier. One away. Well, the Dodgers have gotten yet another jolt. You know, they've lost Yasiel Puig on the DL. Joel Peralta is having a bad back. Hyun-Jin Ryu is still out with a sore shoulder. And maybe the biggest blow of all today is the fact that Brandon McCarthy, who had to come out of the game with tightness in the right elbow, suddenly those dreaded initials, UCL, after his name, the ulnar collateral ligament. And, of course, we certainly have no medical training whatsoever, but we're familiar with those letters and the words. And most of the time when you hear that, you're inclined to believe that the player will have to undergo Tommy John surgery. Now, we're not sure yet about Brandon McCarthy, but he had said earlier, and of course Matt Cain, for instance, can tell you about elbow surgery, but Cain just had loose particles, bone chips. This is more serious with McCarthy. And sometime after the game tonight, I believe, McCarthy, after having the situation studied carefully, will make the announcement. Meanwhile, a red-hot Justin Maxwell at the plate. Maxwell, the boy from Maryland, smart enough to qualify not only for Maryland but for Harvard. But he went to Maryland because they have a better baseball scholarship program. As he said, I admire the education, but I want to be a ball player. And so here he is. Giants having won 4 of 5. They've won 3 games by 1 run. They won 2 games coming from behind. Line drive inside the left field line. Racing over is Crawford. Maxwell on a tear goes steaming into second as he blisters a double, and his great hitting continues.
Number 34, catcher Andrew Sousa.
He has a triple, 3 home runs, 7 RBIs in his last 6 games. He homered the first 2 games in the Rockies series, homered in 3 of the last 5, and now promptly doubles with 1 out in the second inning. So neither pitcher has fooled anybody, and it's no score, top of the second inning. And the batter is Andrew Sousa, the backup catcher, who is doing very well. In the 5 games that Sousa has started, he's hitting .385, right-hand batter. And the first pitch swung on, poke foul up to the right, out of play. Sousa, recalled from AAA on the 18th. Last year, he appeared in 35 games and hit .273. So he's the Giants' top prospect, and he will certainly help Buster Posey play a lot more first base. Strike 1 pitch, poked foul, 0-2. Of course, then you say, well, if Posey's playing a lot of first base, what happens to Brandon Belt? And when you continue to follow that line, there are those who say they might make Belt an outfielder. Who knows? 0-2 the count. Anderson looks back at Maxwell. Now the left-hander deals, and that's foul back. Interesting about the Giants in the ways they have won. 3 games by 1 run, 2 games coming from behind, 2 games in extra innings, all 3 games at home against the Dodgers. They won an extra inning game on Saturday, even though the offense was 1 for 16 with a runner in scoring position. They left 13 men on base and won that game. Breaking ball low, and Anderson almost fell down in his follow through. 1 ball and 2 strikes the count. So Anderson, big spinning curveball, went down to his hands without his knees touching. Slipped in the landing area in front of the pitching rubber. Sousa, right-hand batter waiting. Left-hander Anderson thinks better and backs off the rubber. He wants to talk to Grandal, so timeout for the moment. A couple of more things about the Giants while they have the meeting. The starting pitching has become more effective for Bochy. In their 4 wins during the week, the Giants starting pitchers, starting with Bumgarner, the ERA was 2.8. And the bullpen inherited 9 runners and only 2 scored. Here's the 1-2 pitch to Susac in the dirt. 2-2 the count. You remember, of course, that the Giants turned 4 double plays against the Dodgers. They turned 7 double plays in the 5 games, and they made 1 error in the 5. So they have vastly improved from the club that started the first 14 games of the season. 2-2 pitch is swung on and missed, and down goes Susac. 2 out. Maxwell at second base, and Casey McGee coming up. McGee, I'm sure, knew that he was stepping into a snake pit because of the fact that he was following one of the more popular Giants, Pablo Sandoval, and he has had a brutal time. He's grounded into 8 double plays in 14 games. The percentage, if he hits the ball, he's going to hit it on the ground about 65% of the time. Casey, right-hand hitter, takes in the dirt. Eric Cooper, I thought, gestured with his right hand that time, but the pitch was in the dirt. Let's see what he does. The pitch fools Gandalf, so obviously, and you can see there's the strike. So change the count. It's 0-1. So Grandal crossed up with Anderson. It's hard, a battery that's not accustomed to working together. So no balls and 1 strike. Anderson comes back. McGee has a look, and that's low. 1 ball and 1 strike. McGee, adding to all of his problems, missed 4 games with a left knee strain. It's the same McGee who won the Comeback Player of the Year award last year. So 1-1 to Casey. Anderson checking. Grandal shuffling cards behind the plate. And a 1 ball, 1 strike count. Anderson ready, delivers, and drops it in for a strike. Took a lot off at 82 miles an hour. Anderson's the fellow who had all kinds of injuries. It's really hard to believe all the bad luck that he has had. And of course, Brett, like everybody else connected with the club, truly emotionally upset over Brandon McCarthy and his problems. 1-2 the count to Casey McGee. Out of a stretch goes Anderson, back with a pitch, swung on and missed. McGee strikes out. Giants lead Maxwell at second base, and at the end of an inning and a half, no score. The first inning was a dazzling first act. It'll be Crawford, Uribe, and Peterson. So Carl Crawford trying to get something started, struggling off to a slow start, hitting .229, and takes a strike, and the count 0-1. Lincecum checking signs. Crawford hitting .200 against him, just 3 for 15. Carl fouls it away, and the count no balls and 2 strikes. Tim Lincecum, always an interesting study. After the 2013 season, he had won 10 and lost 14. What did he do? He rented a warehouse. What did he do with the warehouse? Here's the strike 2 pitch in the dirt. He practiced pitching. They put some turf down. Then they built up a mound. There were a couple of nets, and some of his friends were there, and he just threw. It paid off a bit. He came back last year to go 12-9. 1-2 pitch is foul back, though Crawford is still there. A lot of things about Timmy they talk about. He can recite lyrics to hundreds and hundreds of songs from memory. His father began teaching him the mechanics of pitching, believe it or not, when he was 4 years old. Next pitch is foul back. Crawford, somewhat of an awkward swing, lost balance, staggered across home plate. Another thing which most baseball people would certainly disapprove, the fact that his father taught Tim Lincecum to throw a curveball when he was 8 years old. And most people say, no, you don't want those young arms and those developing bones to have any pressure on them. 1-2 pitch fouled away. But Timmy's father, a rather unorthodox teacher, got away with it. He also taught the older brother to throw curveballs, and the older brother played at 5 different levels, but eventually broke his arm twice playing football, so he is no longer engaged. 1-2 pitch pulled. Line drive into the right field corner. Maxwell over to get it. Crawford is at second. He is not going to stop, and he'll make it easily. So Carl Crawford triples into the right field corner. Not much Justin Maxwell could do about that. So the Dodgers have a runner in scoring position 90 feet away. Nobody out. And Uribe, Peterson, and Anderson coming up. Looked like a fastball at the knees. Hit right down into the corner. Maxwell, good outfielder, racing over to get it. One look by Carl Crawford, and he opened up, shifted into high gear, and made it to third without a play. So Carl Crawford comes up with his first triple. He has a home run and a couple of doubles. And here's Uribe, that has a big hack and fouls it away. Uribe in the past hitting .281 against Lincecum with 3 doubles and 2 home runs. And Juan comes in with an 8-game hitting streak. The infield is back. It's only the second inning. Lincecum ready and delivers in the dirt. Nice block by Susac. Interesting, if you go back to 2010, right up to tonight, the Dodgers have won 1 more game than the Giants. 1-1 pitch on the way, inside, ball 2. The big difference, however, the Giants in the postseason with 3 world championships and 26 wins. There's a beach ball loose at the base of the scoreboard in right field. So the Giants starting off with Lincecum. Tomorrow night, a rematch. And that would be Madison Bumgarner against Clayton Kershaw. And then the concluding game, it will be Vogelsong and Greinke. 2-1 pitch on the way, and that's high, ball 3, 3-1. By the way, for active players, Carl Crawford is the leader. He now has 121 triples. Jose Reyes has 115, and teammate Jimmy Rollins has 112. Here's the 3-1 pitch on the way. swung on and missed. 3-2 the count. Whenever you have a runner at third, it's not a bad idea to check. Lincecum does not have a wild pitch. Waiting on deck, Jock Peterson has already made his presence known with that dazzling play in the first inning. 3-2, and Uribe takes way off the plate. Ball 4. So the Dodgers have 3 hits and 2 walks. Here's the ball hit by Angel Pagan. Peterson with his back to home plate caught it almost 2 steps before crashing into the wall, and then turned, fired to Jimmy Rollins. Rollins on a hop got it over to first, and the Dodgers doubled up Aoki. A magnificent major league play started by Jock Peterson. So first and third, nobody out, and Peterson checking in. Jock was 1 for 2 against Lincecum, but hits the first pitch foul in the air to McGee, and Casey makes the catch in fair ground for the out. So Peterson, nothing like youth going after that first pitch. Remember what we told you about Lincecum. If you go after the first pitch, you're not going to hit a lick. But if you get into the count at all, you'll do well. So Peterson violating that particular rule, and I'm not sure if he has any idea about it, but he went after the first pitch, popped it up. So first and third, 1 away, and the batter now, Brett Anderson. Lincecum delivers a bunt foul with not a squeeze, maybe a safety squeeze, but the corners were charging the plate, and the count 0-1. By the way, we mentioned with a runner at third, we always look up the wild pitches made by the pitcher. Lincecum does not have any this year. However, in his career, he has 99 wild pitches. Lorenzo Bundy talking to Brett Anderson to make sure he has the sign. 1 out. On deck, Jimmy Rollins. Crawford triples. Uribe walks. Peterson pops up. And here's Anderson. No balls and 1 strike. Anderson showing bunt. Lincecum delivers, and the bunt up along first base. The play will be at first. Holding at third is Crawford. So it's a straight sacrifice to stay out of the double play, get Uribe to second, and leave it up to a struggling Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy Rollins walked in the first inning. Dodgers hoping to get him started. Jimmy, of course, so talented and has had a magnificent career. He was 1 for 4 in his last game in San Diego. So second and third, 2 out. Lincecum ready, and the pitch to Jimmy swung on and fouled away. Jimmy Rollins hitting 184 against Lincecum, walked in the first inning. Jimmy's had a lot of at-bats against Lincecum, and he's had 7 hits and 2 doubles. He's also struck out 10 times. Strike 1 pitch on the way. Nice save off the plate by Susac, and a 1-ball, 1-strike count. Jimmy Rollins, as the wheels turn, was the first batter that Tim Lincecum ever faced in the major leagues. It was 2007. Rollins was the MVP that year, and Jimmy singled in their first meeting. Now the 1-1 pitch swung on, hit in the air to right. Coming over is Maxwell. A diving, wonderful catch. That saved 2 runs and keeps the game scoreless. And we've seen some great plays. The one by Jock Peterson, the one by Buster Posey, and now this diving catch by Justin Maxwell. So the Dodgers and Rollins are denied. No runs, 1 hit, 2 left. And at the end of 2 exciting innings, no score. Justin Maxwell on the ball hit by Rollins, and Jock Peterson's incredible catch on the ball hit by Angel Pagan. So with that kind of fielding, no score, third inning, and it'll be Brandon Crawford, then Lincecum and Aoki. For the past week, the Giants as a team hit 300, and Brandon Crawford hit 316. The left-hand hitting shortstop takes a strike, and the count 0-1. Crawford hit 316. Justin Maxwell hit 350. The next pitch, a check swing for a strike. Crawford in a hole, 0-2. 6 different Giants had at least 2 RBIs during the week. So all in all, a much better team than the team that started the season. Brandon takes down and away, ball 1-2. Made an incredible diving stop. Meanwhile, Hunter Pence is still a spectator. Hit by a pitch, suffered a broken arm. Probably sometime in May as Crawford fouls it back. Of course, right now, the outfield is Aoki, Pagan, and Maxwell. Well, there's no way that Bochy could possibly take Maxwell out. He's been brilliant. So what they might have to do, maybe, Pence takes over in right, Maxwell goes to left, and Aoki sits down, but we'll see. Meanwhile, 1-2 to Brandon Crawford, and the fastball is low. 2-2 the count. Brandon, of course, familiar with the territory, like the Music Man. Went to UCLA. Crawford hitting .308 against left-handers. Checks his swing on a breaking ball down and away, and that runs the count 3-2. So where he's doing well, .308 against left-handers, he's only hitting .184 against right-handers. 3-2 pitch. Anderson delivers, and it's same spot, down and away, ball 4. So it's interesting where the top of the third inning, the Giants have had 2 leadoff men get on, and they had their number 2 hitter in the second inning get on. The Dodgers have had their leadoff man get on in each of the first 2 innings, and yet scoreless in the third. Here is Lincecum, not a bad hitter, and we'll see if they put the bunt on. Nobody out, Aoki on deck. He shows bunt, flicks at it and misses, and the count 0-1. Lincecum, a remarkable athlete. In fact, when he was in high school, he had played 27 holes of golf in his entire life, and he wanted to go out and join the team. And they said you had to shoot 40. And without any real golfing experience, he shot 39. But he was also the point guard on the basketball team. He was a quarterback, cornerback. So he is multi-talented, to say the least. So Brandon Crawford at first. Lincecum trying to advance him. No balls and 2 strikes. With 2 strikes now, we'll see if they take the bunt off. Lincecum, as a batter, is 0 for 5. He has struck out twice, and he does not have a sacrifice. The strike 2 pitch shows bunt, flicks at it, fouls it, and he is struck out. So that is the 3rd strikeout for Brett Anderson. Don't forget Wednesday, Dodgers and Giants at 7:10. That's Vogelsong and Greinke. And the first 40,000 fans in attendance receive a Clayton Kershaw themed fleece blanket, compliments of security benefit. So visit Dodgers.com/promotion. Wednesday, Giants and Dodgers, Vogelsong and Greinke. Tomorrow night, Kershaw and Bumgarner. Aoki, tough hitter because of the strike zone, bends at the knees and waist. So at 5'8", there's not that much of a zone. Runs very well. Good bunter. Single to the hole at short, and then was going when Pagan hit that ball over Peterson's head, and Jock made a Willie Mays or DiMaggio play to actually catch up to a ball that was over his head and way beyond him, as Pagan would attest. Throw to first. Crawford holding. Crawford has one stolen base. He's also been caught once. No score, top of the third. Dodgers no runs, 3 hits. Giants no runs, 2 hits. The next pitch, a little breaking ball down and away at 80 miles an hour. So 1 ball and no strikes. Basically, when you're the hitter, you know you're going to get a 2-seamer that sinks, a 4-seam fastball, curveball, slider, and a changeup. Crawford off the bag. Anderson looks at him. Now the 1-0 pitch on the way, and that's low. 2 balls and no strikes. The plate umpire, Eric Cooper, is accustomed to excitement and headlines. Believe it or not, he's been the home plate umpire for 3 no-hitters, 2 by Mark Burley, one of which was a perfect game, and Hideo Nomo's no-hitter. 2-0 pitch coming up, and that's high and inside. And again, Anderson struggling against a left-hand batter. He walked Crawford. Now he's in danger of walking Aoki, falling behind 3-0, and another left-hand hitter, Joe Panik, on deck. 3-0, and that's in there. 3-1. Anderson picked up 2 strikeouts, Susak and McGee, in the second inning. Crawford at first, 3 balls, 1 strike. He's not going, and the pitch is in there. 3-2. Though they didn't put a play on 3-1, we'll see about what they do 3-2. Aoki has struck out 11 times in about 80 plate appearances. Crawford takes his lead. He is going. Pitch is a ground ball to third. Uribe quickly to second, in time. To first, not in time. And a wonderful play by Howie Kendrick. Because the runner was going, Uribe threw down to second, and Kendrick somehow held on to the ball and got the force play. And Crawford runs well. Uribe down there and into the bag with feet coming up. Kendrick a little late, but that was a fine play by the second baseman. So 2 down on the force play, and the batter now is Joe Panik, who flied to center. So an excellent play by Howie Kendrick. Panik, the left-hand batter, and he looks at a pitch low, ball 1. Isn't it amazing? I mean, if you follow baseball all the time, you get to a tough spot, and immediately they'll bring a left-hand pitcher in to face a left-hand batter. But it would be the perfectly wrong thing to do to send up a right-hand hitter against Anderson. Fastball is low, and Brett's behind 2-0. So Aoki got aboard. Crawford has gotten aboard. Aoki now a threat to run over there. No score, 2 out, top of the third. You have nothing to lose. If Aoki is nailed, you open up the next inning with Panik. There he goes. 2-0 pitch is a strike. The throw is a little high, but he had such a good jump, he has stolen it. So for Aoki, he has now stolen 6 out of 8. Got a good jump. There wasn't much that Grandal can do. Got rid of it as quickly as possible, but Aoki had that base stolen easily. 2-1 the count to Joe Panik, trying to pick him up. Panik flied to center in the first inning, but that was not the ball that was hit to center that captivated this audience. That was the ball hit by Pagan. That was truly a big league play by young Jock Peterson. He turned his back on home plate, and that back was turned for quite a while because the ball was over his head and it was past him. And somehow he was able to reach up and grab it, almost ran up the center field wall, and then got it to Jimmy Rollins to get Pagan. 2-1 to Panik, and he takes ball 3. So Crawford, a left-hand batter, walked. Aoki, a left-hand batter, has singled, and Panic is up there with a 3-1 count. And Pagan waits. 3 balls and 1 strike. Fastball fouled away. 3-2 to Panic. Giants trying to get over some bad games. For instance, the Giants have lost 4 out of 5 against Colorado. They also had Sunday's game rained out, so late in May they'll have to go to beautiful Denver and have an afternoon game and a night game. 3-2 the count to Joe Panic, the kid from Yonkers. Anderson, a long look in to Grandal, who gestures as if to say, just a minute, I'll go over it again. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Now the next pitch is a ground ball to third, picked up there by Uribe, gets it over to Gonzalez, and that'll be that. So Crawford opened up the inning with a walk. Aoki steals second, and yet Anderson out of the inning. And at the end of 2.5 innings, no score. Anderson has made 48 pitches. He's been pitching out of the stretch since Aoki opened up the game with an infield single, but Lincecum has had his share of troubles as well. So in the bottom of the third, Andre Ethier takes off the plate, ball 1. Ethier robbed of what would have been a double and probably a run batted in on a diving catch by Buster Posey. The 1-0 pitch over the heads of everybody around home plate, off the glove of Susac all the way to the backstop. 2 balls and no strikes. Remember, we told you that Tim has 99 wild pitches in his career. Lincecum checks in at an even 6, about 165. Next pitch is low. 3-0 the count to Ethier. Interesting too, Lincecum was the Gatorade High School Player of the Year. He was drafted by the Cubs. He was 5'9" and weighed 135 pounds. Tim has an unusually long stride to the plate. That's the first thing that caught everybody's eye. 3-1 pitch, that's a strike, 3-2. They usually say 80% of a man's height. So he's 6 feet tall. 80% would mean his stride would be about 4 feet 8 inches. He's low to Ethier, ball 4. Well, Lincecum's stride is equal to about 128%. It is really rare indeed. So Lincecum has walked 3, given up 3 hits and no runs. Anderson has walked 1, given up a couple of hits and no runs. And here now is Adrian Gonzalez, single to center, and they put the shift on even with a runner at first. And the fastball is high. Ball 1, 1-0. They'll load up the right side, although Crawford is plenty close to the bag if he receives a ground ball throw from Crawford. The 1-0 pitch on the way. Big slow curveball for a strike. 1-1 to count. Remember, Tim had long hair down around his shoulders at one time. No longer. 1-1 pitch. Foul back. 1-2 the count. Gonzalez sees a lot of base runners. In fact, he was one of 3 tops in the league. He had seen 35 base runners. However, Ethier robbed of the double, so that when Gonzalez came up in the first inning, bases were empty. Not this time. Ethier held on at first by Posey. Lincecum, 31 years old in June, and misses low. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Now Lincecum has made 46 pitches. Anderson made 48. And of course Lincecum is just starting the bottom of the 3rd. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Outfield straightaway. Maxwell deep and right. Ground ball through that hole on the left side. Ethier to second. He's going to keep on going. And Aoki has to throw into second base. So a nice bit of hitting as usual from Adrian Gonzalez. With only McGee on the left side, he got a ball down and away and just went with it and ground single into left center. Ethier showing good speed, going all the way to 3rd. So the Dodgers once again in business. They had a runner at 3rd, nobody out in the 2nd inning. They had 2 on and 2 out in the 1st, and they still haven't scored. Here's Kendrick, and he promptly hits one into right center for a hit. Scoring is Ethier. On his way to 3rd is Gonzalez, and the Dodgers break through and lead 1-0. So Tim Lincecum obviously struggling, and the Dodgers have piled up 5 hits, 2 walks, but only 1 run. So Kendrick at first, Gonzalez at 3rd. Lincecum in trouble. No one throwing in the Giant bullpen. Yasmani Grandal grounded out in the 1st inning. Nobody out. Lincecum delivers, gets a strike, and the count 0-1. Scott Van Slyke comes out on deck now. Remember, Crawford had that triple. He might have hurt himself. Strike 1 pitch, and that's in there. Strike 2, 0-2 the count. So Crawford is back in the dugout sitting alongside Brett Anderson. Nobody out. 1st and 3rd a run in. Dodgers lead 1-0. Lincecum has all the great numbers at home. Timmy up north has won 9 games and lost only 3. On the road last year, he won 3 and lost 6. His earned run average at home was 3. On the road, 6. 1 ball and 2 strikes the count. Contrary to the rule, remember we were talking about the fact if you swing at the first pitch, you're in a lot of trouble with Lincecum. Not Howie Kendrick. Both of his hits on the first pitch. Crawford has his bats in his glove and has left the dugout. There goes Kendrick. The pitch missed. The throw on a hop. That's through the legs of Crawford. Scoring on the play is Gonzalez. And the Dodgers lead 2-0. So the throw by Susac. Crawford went down. It went right between his legs. The breaking ball was strike 3. The throw down bouncing, and Crawford unable to block it. So the Dodgers now have Kendrick at second. We're waiting to see whether there's a throwing error charged to Susac, who's obviously, facially at least, in pain. He's going to draw the error. So Kendrick steals second. And when the ball gets away from Crawford, Gonzalez scores, and it's an error charged to the catcher, Andrew Susac, although I'm sure Crawford feels he should have blocked it. Ground ball, base hit into left field. They will hold Kendrick at third. So Scott Van Slyke just walks up there to bat for Crawford and promptly bangs a single, and Dave Righetti going out. When July 4th comes, certainly the Giants should celebrate a great deal. Scott Van Slyke getting the slow curve and the ground ball single. It was July 4th, way back in 1983. Red Sox Yankees at Yankee Stadium, and left-handed Dave Righetti no-hit the Red Sox. It was the first Yankee no-hitter since Don Larson's perfect game in the 1956 World Series. So the Dodgers jump out to a 2-0 lead. And Juan Uribe, who walked, coming up. So a walk, 2 singles, a strikeout, and then Van Slyke getting the line drive single 11. Dodgers with 3 hits, a walk and an error, and there's a base hit to right field for Uribe. Scoring is Hendricks. Stopping at second is Van Slyke, and the Dodgers lead 3-0. And that was on the first pitch. So the Dodgers certainly going after Tim Lincecum. Uribe just slashes it to right field. He now has a 9-game hitting streak. Kendrick brings in the 3rd run of the inning, and the Dodgers 3 runs, 7 hits. There has not a ball been thrown in the Giant bullpen, not yet, but they're moving the furniture as we speak. So in a minute they'll have some action, and Jock Peterson swung at the first pitch and popped it up in the 2nd inning. Lincecum ready and delivers. First pitch, big swing and a miss. However, as we said, the pattern has changed. Kendrick a first pitch single, Van Slyke, and now Uribe all getting in on the act. George Contos gets up in the Giant bullpen. Strike 1 pitch in the dirt. Nice block by Susac, and the count 1 ball and 1 strike. It all started with a walk to Ethier. Gonzalez singled him to third. Kendrick singled home Ethier. Van Slyke singled after Gonzalez had scored on the throwing error. And now Uribe has singled to cash in Kendrick. And a drive to right down the line, carrying to the base of the box seats. 1 run will score on a long double by Peterson, and the Dodgers lead 4-0. Jock Peterson ripped one. It carried long and fair and hit the base of the box seats in right field. Fielded there by Maxwell. The Dodgers pick up the 4th run of the inning. Still only 1 out. And here's Brett Anderson The infield has to play halfway. Uribe down the line from third. Peterson away from second. Lincecum delivers way off the plate. Ball one. 1-0. Scott Van Slyke just walking off the bench. Clean base hit as he chats with Howie Kendrick. 1 ball and no strikes. Uribe and Peterson taking their leads. High chopper over the mound near the bag. Gobbled up. Great play by Panic. And the Dodgers now have some base running problems, but Posey has no one to throw the ball to. On that ball up the middle, it was a wonderful play by Panic, who kept on going towards third. Meanwhile, Crawford, the shortstop, was racing to his left to try to back up Panic. And when the ball is retrieved by Panic, made a good backhand short hop throw. Posey looked, no play at third, and there wasn't anybody at second base to throw the ball. So the Dodgers get a break as Anderson grounds out. That was a nice play by Panic. So 2 out, second and third, and here's Jimmy Rollins. Walked in the first inning, robbed of a base hit on a diving play by Maxwell in right field. 4 runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers. 4-0 Dodgers, and Rollins with first base open takes ball 1. Lincecum came into the game with an earned run average of 2. But he is being roundly and soundly abused here in the third. Rollins, the 9th man to come to the plate. Jimmy swings, doesn't get it, and the count 1 ball, 1 strike. 4 runs, 8 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. No runs, 2 hits, 1 error for the Giants. The 1-1 pitch is taken, fastball low and away. 2-1. Of course, when you talk about Lincecum now, you talk fastball at 86. There was a time when you would talk Lincecum fastball and you were talking 94. 2-1 pitch on the way, taken off the plate again. First base open, and another left-hand batter, Andre Ethier, coming up. Dodgers with 5 hits to go with their 4 runs. Rollins hits the 3-1 pitch foul down the left field line and back into the crowd. 3-2. When the Giants come up in the 4th inning, they'll have Pagan, Posey, and Maxwell. Pagan robbed of an extra base hit in the first inning. Posey flied to right. Maxwell doubled. 3-2 to Rollins. Swung on. Little ground ball right side. Panic is on it. And that's that. The Dodgers leave runners at second and third, but they pick up a big 4. It all starts with the Dodgers. It was Kendrick, a base hit that cashed in Ethier. Then it was a long double by Jock Peterson, and the Dodgers piled up 4. And at the end of 3, lead. Dodge Challenger. With an EPA estimated 30 highway MPG, this car was made for driving in California. Visit Dodge.com today. Fourth inning, Brett Anderson facing Angel Pagan. 1 ball and no strikes. Scott Van Slyke, who batted for Crawford and singled, is now in left field and will await the news on Carl Crawford. Ground ball to short. Rollins, 1 away. In case you have joined us a bit late, with all of the other Dodger injuries, the fact that Yasiel Puig is on the DL, Joel Peralta with a bad back, Hyun-Jin Ryu with the tender shoulder, and the Dodgers lost Brandon McCarthy. You might remember he left the game in his last start with a tightness in the elbow, and it turned out to be an injury to the ulnar collateral ligament. No balls and 1 strike to count to Posey. Whether that will lead to Tommy John surgery and the loss of McCarthy for, a year and a half remains to be seen. And now Carl Crawford triples in the 2nd inning. For those of you who wondered, McCarthy 3-0, had an ERA of 5.8 and had to come out. A drive to center. Peterson goes back a few strides. 2 down. Now we're wondering about Crawford. Carl has had leg problems in the past, and he tripled to open up the 2nd inning. We saw him pick up his bats and his glove and go back to the clubhouse. And of course, the Dodgers are so fortunate. I mean, everybody talked about the excess outfielders in spring training, remember? And now you have Ethier playing a solid right field, and Van Slyke certainly capable of playing a solid left field. Fly ball to center. Peterson gloves it. A 1-2-3 inning for Brett Anderson. And at the end of 3.5 innings, 4-0 favor the Dodgers. Fan. We are delighted to have him in Pop's hands and arms as we move on to the bottom of the 4th inning. And a reminder, be sure to be one of the first 15,000 children 14 and under in attendance May 3rd. Get a kid's Yasiel Puig replica jersey presented by Rice Krispies Treats. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. May 3rd, by the way, a Sunday against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Brett Anderson had just what the doctor ordered. He had a 6-pitch 4th inning. Now Lincecum will have to work to Andre Ethier. So Anderson cut it back now to only 54 pitches in 4 innings. Lincecum made 65 in the first 3 including 29 pitches in the third inning. The Giants and the Mets, they're the only two divisional leaders in the major leagues under 500 on the road. The Mets, of course, were 10-0. The Dodgers 8-1 at home. Joe Panik from Yonkers can tell you about the Mets. 1-2 the count. Giants, meanwhile, 3.5 back of the Dodgers. Little nubber out in front of the plate. That takes care of Ethier. 1 away.
Number 23.
Well, this game has had a lot and was still a long way to go. They had some brilliant defensive plays, and then the Dodgers breaking loose in the third inning. First inning started on that great play by Peterson. Came back to see the great diving catch by Justin Maxwell. We saw Maxwell make a great play up at AT&T Park on Yasiel Puig's foul ball. He made a great sliding catch, crashed into the concrete base, hurt his knee, but stayed in there. That's a strike. 1 ball and 1 strike. For Lincecum, that check swing by Ethier and the out. That's his second strikeout. Gonzalez 2 for 2, single to center and single to left. Pulled on the ground to the shallow right fielder, Joe Penn. So 2 out in the 4th inning.
Number 47.
And Howie Kendrick coming up. Kendrick single to left, single to right, scored a run. Dodgers not only 4 runs and 8 hits. They left 2 men in the first inning. They left 2 men in the second inning, and they left 2 men in the third. That's going to go foul down the line. Still 0-2 to Howie. Lincecum is due to bat 4th when the Giants come up in the 5th inning. High fly ball, very playable, and it'll be Maxwell. So the Dodgers go quietly 1-2-3 in the 4th inning for the first time tonight, and at the end of 4-0 Dodgers. Fourth inning, he made only 6 pitches to retire the side. He had made 48 pitches in the first 3, so he got a little bit of a rest. Now he goes back to work. Andrew Susac, the catcher, Casey McGee, the third baseman, and then Brandon Crawford, the shortstop. First time around, both Susac and McGee struck out. Susac, a fine young catcher and a good hitter, hits it up the middle. Kendrick is there. 1 out.
Number 14, Casey McGee.
Casey McGee coming up. In some ways, and I realize if you're a Dodger fan, you're not going to give the Giants anything, but if you were, it wouldn't be a bad idea to sympathize, almost empathize with Casey McGee, who looks at a great curveball for a strike. 0-1. McGee has a little son named Mikhail who battles with cerebral palsy. He was diagnosed at the age of 2. He had to use a walker. Now he has bulky leg braces. And of course, for McGee, wherever he plays, he has to have therapy for the child. Grounds out. So the pressure, the personal pressure on himself and his family because of young Mikhail, and coming to a new team, replacing one of the great favorites, Pablo Sandoval, your heart goes out to him. Although I know you're not going to root for him with the bases loaded and the tying run, etc. But still, they're not wind-up dolls. And here's Brandon Crawford, who walked in the 3rd inning. Eight in a row retired by Brett Anderson. Started after he walked Brandon Crawford. Hector Sanchez comes out on deck. Switch hitting catcher to bat for Lincecum. A little foul out of play. 1 ball, 1 strike. There's Hector. Hector, the tattoo collector. He's got quite a few of them. Meanwhile, George Contos up in the pen. Two balls and 1 strike. With Crawford up there, Scott Van Slyke plays a very shallow left field. Peterson is up. 3-1 the count to Brandon. Tim Lincecum this close to coming out. That's a strike. And off the plate for ball 4. That would be the second walk given up by Anderson. And here now is Hector Sanchez.
Number 29, Hector Sanchez.
So that'll do it for Lincecum as Sanchez checks in at home plate. Hector out of Maracay in Venezuela. 5'11" and a good 210. Originally signed by the Giants back in 2007. Foul ball out of play. 0-1. Sanchez, the third catcher. Posey, who catches and plays first. Susac, and now Hector. With the Giants last year, he struggled with the bat. Ground ball to the hole. That's a base hit to left field. So Lincecum a single, or his batter Sanchez hitting for him. And 2 on, 2 out.
Number 23,
Aoki coming up.
Nori Aoki.
4 runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers, no runs, 3 hits for the Giants. Aoki single to the shortstop in the hole, beat the throw by Jimmy Rollins, and then last time up hit into a force play. Promptly stole second, but Panic grounded out. So the Giants trying to get back in the game. 2 on, 2 out, and here's Aoki. Crawford and Sanchez. Slow curveball for ball 1. Anderson ready for his 68th pitch. Fastball low. 2-0. As the starting pitcher, you have to go the required 5 innings. Anderson has gone 4 2/3. Dodgers lead 4-0. Strike. Honeycutt and Mattingly watching Anderson working his way, trying to get through on his 70th pitch. Ball 3. Three and 1. Ground ball. Foul ball. Foul ball. Quick call by Quinn Walcott on the line back at third. By the way, remember earlier we were talking about Tim Lincecum, and we said if a hitter swings at the first pitch, the batting average is .056. Well, it's interesting tonight. The Dodgers have 8 hits against Lincecum, and 4 of the 8 hits came on the first pitch. So sabermetrics goes out the window tonight. First and second, 2 out, 3 and 2 the count to Aoki. Runners go, ground ball up the middle, and that's going to score 1. Peterson comes up with it. Crawford brings it home. Sanchez stops at second, and the Dodger lead is 4-1. In the Dodger bullpen, Carlos Frias hasn't even warmed up yet, as Aoki comes up with a single up the middle. But he is a pest. He finds the spot. That's his second hit. Run batted in. Crawford brings it home. Sanchez stops at second. And the batter is Joe Panic. 1 run, 4 hits for the Giants. Carlos Frias warming up. Panic fly to center, grounded to third, 0 for 2. Aoki at first, Sanchez at second. Slow curveball in for a strike. Fastball hit to right. It's over Ethier's head. It's going to go to the board off the base of the scoreboard. 1 run will score. Stopping at third is Aoki on a long double, and it's 4-2 Dodgers, and Anderson is hanging on. I'm sure Mattingly and Honeycutt would love to get him through the inning, but he's having a tough time doing it. With 2 out, a walk to Crawford. Sanchez singled. Aoki single to score Crawford, and now Panic went down to get a low pitch and hit the base of the scoreboard in right field for a double. Stopping at third, Aoki, and with first base open, here is Angel Pagan. So now a base hit now would be a crusher for Anderson. And remember, Pagan has piled up so many singles. Honeycutt checking to see where Frias is. Got Krim at the other end of the phone call. And Anderson trying somehow to get the out. Remember, Pagan hit one over Peterson's head, and whoops, hold everything. Here comes Mattingly. Somewhat of a funereal walk, which usually means the end for the pitcher. For Brett Anderson, so close. 2 out. Then a walk, 2 singles and a double. Having been a ball player, Mattingly knows how important it is. Trying to help his pitcher, but at the same time, he can't afford to blow a 4-0 lead. Trying to engage the plate umpire Eric Cooper, give Frias a little more time to warm up, but he has not made the indication that he's changing. Now he has. So near and yet so far. Brett Anderson has to come out. Not only coming out where he can't win, the only consolation is he can't lose. The runners on base are the tying runs. We'll be right back. Is brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. Now you can axe the tax on the entire 2015 Prius family. See your Toyota dealer today. Brett Anderson had a 4-0 lead with 2 out in the 5th inning. He needed 1 more out to go the required 5 and apparently pick up an easy victory. But there's nothing easy in the big league. With 2 out, he walked Crawford. Then Sanchez a pinch hit single. Then Aoki a single to score Crawford. Then Panic a double to score Sanchez. So runners at 2nd and 3rd representing the 3rd and 4th runs. And it's in the hands now of Carlos Frias, just recently called up. Frias made his major league debut August last year, went 2 innings against the Angels, 2 scoreless innings, then made a major league start, and it was a nightmare. Angel Pagan is 0 for 2 thanks to that great play by Peterson in the 1st inning, and ball 1. They also forced Pagan by bringing in a right-hander to bat left-handed. Carlos Frias, in his game against the Rockies, was pulled in the 1st inning, charged with 8 runs. That was a nightmare game for the young right-hander from the Dominican Republic. High chopper over the mound, over second base. Great run-saving block by Kendrick that saved the tying run by diving at the ball. So Pagan singles up the middle. That scores Aoki, and certainly Panic would have scored except for the big play by Kendrick. All out hustle, diving, backhanding, scrambling, and the runner had to hold. So Pagan, a single and a run batted in. So the Giants come bouncing back from down 4-0. It's now 4-3. And here's Buster Posey with runners at first and third. Posey 0 for 2 with fly balls. Oh, and 1. 96-mile-an-hour fastball. Carlos Frias is a big man, but on the lean side. He's 6'4", but weighs about 170, 175, and yet he can hit 96 on the gun. First and third, 2 out in the fifth, 4-3 Dodgers. 1 ball and 1 strike. Frias basically a 2-seamer and a 4-seamer. Curveball, slider, changeup. Usually gets a lot of ground balls. He's behind now 2-1. Posey is the 8th man to come to the plate here in the 5th inning. Dodgers scored 4 in the 3rd, and now the Giants coming back. 2-1 to Posey. 2-2. 93 mile an hour. That's the 2-seamer that has a tendency to sink. Deuce is wild. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, 2 on at first and third. And ball 3. Waiting on deck, Justin Maxwell. Maxwell doubled and flied to center. Posey with 2 fly balls at the plate. So 3-2 and 2 down. Pagan ready to go from first. They're not holding him. There he goes on a foul ball down the right field line. Well back in the lower deck. So in the inning, Crawford walked with 2 outs. Sanchez, the pinch hitter, singled him to second. Aoki singled up the middle to cash in Crawford. Panic double to right. That scored Sanchez. Aoki stopped at third. Three and 2. Pagan goes on ball 4, and the bases are loaded for Maxwell. Maxwell becomes the 9th man to come up here in the 5th inning. Maxwell earlier made a diving catch on a ball hit by Jimmy Rollins in the 2nd inning. That catch saved 2 runs. Now Maxwell's coming up where he can come up with a couple of runs with the bat after saving 2 with the glove. Uribe over to talk to Frias. Carlos Frias will be 26 the middle of November. So the 9th man to come up, Justin Maxwell. Fastball strike at 97. Panic at third, Pagan at second, Posey at first. So the P men are out there. Oh, and 1. Comebacker. So Maxwell, the ninth man to come up, hits back to the box. The Giants leave 2 but score 3. And at the end of 4.5 innings, the Dodgers now trying to hold on to what was once a 4-0 lead and is now 4-3. The 5th inning. And you know, friends, May the 15th, Denny's presents Friday Night Fireworks. You can take your place on the field, see the fireworks, featuring songs from 1965. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotion. Tim Lincecum went out for the pinch hitter, down 4-0. Now it's 4-3. And George Contos out of Lincolnwood, Illinois, went to school at Northwestern. That name Contos is Greek indeed, and he attended Greek school, raised by his grandparents who both spoke Greek. George is 6'3", a good 215. He'll be 30 years old the middle of June. He was originally signed by the Yankees. Yasmani Grandal has grounded out, struck out 0 for 2. So the starting pitchers are gone. 0-1. 0-2. Don Mattingly tried so hard to get Brad Anderson a victory, but he just couldn't do it. 1-2. Little ground ball, panic, 1 away. Now the batter will be Scott Van Slyke. Van Slyke came up as a pinch hitter. We never heard why Crawford went out of the game. We assume that when he tripled, maybe something hurt. We're waiting to hear. But meanwhile, Van Slyke walked up and got a base hit to left field. Good fastball, good swing, 0-1. One and one. Contos, good sinking fastball. He has a slider and a changeup. He's really been working on his curveball. Very much of a bulldog out there. 1-1. Little tap Conto's bare hand straightens up. Nice pick by Posey at the end of a high throw. 2 down in the 5th inning, and Juan Uribe coming up. Uribe walked and singled. His base hit extends his hitting streak to 9. Down in the Dodger bullpen, another newcomer, Sergio Santos, begins to warm up. And ball 1. When the Giants come up in the 6th inning, they'll have Susac, McGee, and Brandon Crawford. Carlos Frias may or may not go out to the mound. It all depends with Santos loosening up. Frias made 11 pitches to get Maxwell. Big swing. 2-1. Contos pitched very briefly with the Yankees in 2011. Eventually came to the Giants, and he's been going back and forth from Fresno to San Francisco. Curveball lifted foul. Posey and Panic. Panic reaching in, but no chance. Two and two to count. Panic and Posey, they figure to be alongside of each other for quite a while. Oh, sure, Posey will catch a lot, but as the years go by, Panic figures to be a fixture, and Posey play more first base. 2 balls and 2 strikes, 2 out, bases empty, 5th inning, 4-3 Dodgers. Foul back. Sergio Santos is throwing in the pen, so apparently one way or another they will lift Frias after he made 11 pitches. At least it looks that way. 2-2. Fastball, charging it. Casey McGee, a bounce. Whoa, what a pick by Posey. Wow. He does it all, doesn't he? A hurried throw by McGee, and Posey saves the play. The Dodgers go in order, and at the end of the 5, lead 4-3. I had to hang it up. He had to have shoulder surgery performed by Dr. Frank Jobe. Well, it's interesting. When Tommy John had surgery, he had won 124. After surgery, he won 164. Well, for Orel Hershiser, he won more after the surgery than before. And with that, let's go back to this one. For the record, Orel had won 99 games before the surgery and 105 after. 2 balls and no strikes. Andrew Susac struck out, grounded out. Carlos Frias still in there. Santos is behind him. Popped in the air, foul. I mean, that thing is up. Two and one to count. In the Dodger bullpen, and it's really tough to figure out. You can't take your eyes off the bullpen. It's like looking at the Dodger roster. It changes before your eyes. So Frias came in, made 11 pitches, and stays in. Santos was throwing. He's not. Adam Liberatore, who is back with the big club, is down in the pen. That one's another towering pop foul. Susac fouling out to his fellow catcher, Yasmani Grandal, one away.
Number 14, Casey McGee.
The Dodgers in the bottom of the 6th inning are due to send a Peterson, then Frias, and then Rollins. Oh, there's Adam Liberatore getting ready. McGee has struck out, grounded out, 0 for 2. Fastball. They give McGee a lot of territory because Van Slyke plays straight away and left. Peterson is in right center. Now they move Van Slyke about 5 steps to his left to close it up a little bit. 0-2. Casey McGee struck out, grounded out. Came into the game hitting 188. Javier Lopez, the left-hander, now gets up in the Giant pen. Fastball hit in the air to right field. Ethier coming over to the line. Oh, nice catch. So McGee fouls out. 2 foul balls in the 6th inning, and the batter will be Brandon Crawford. Andre doing a great job in the absence of Yasiel Puig. Rick Honeycutt has gone out to talk to Frias how they want him to pitch to Brandon Crawford. On deck, Brandon Belt. So they have Liberatore up there for 2 reasons, perhaps. If Belt comes up, then Liberatore comes in. So this is a big at bat. Frias trying to get Crawford in the inning. If he doesn't get him, he's coming out. Four runs, 8 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 6 hits, and an error for the Giants. Oh, and 1. Crawford, as we mentioned earlier, has done very, very well against left-handers. That's why they didn't bring Liberatore in to pitch to him now. They would bring Liberatore in to face Belt. 0-1. No balls, 1 strike. One and one. I was watching that pitch in the dirt and the exchange of balls. Eric Cooper put a new one in play. Pitchers have remarkable sense of touch as far as a baseball is concerned. Ball 2. Ron Luciano was an American League umpire doing a game with Jim Palmer pitching, and he decided when Palmer didn't want a ball, instead of throwing it out, Luciano put the ball in his pocket, and an inning later snuck the ball back in, and Palmer immediately said, no, this is the ball I didn't want an inning ago. They can be that sharp. 2-2 the count. Tomorrow night, Madison Bumgarner, Clayton Kershaw. For the second time. Did that hit him? He just did get out of the way of it. So 3-2 the count. Now they've switched. Matt Duffy is out on deck instead of Brandon Belt. 3-2, very big pitch. 4-3 Dodgers. Ground ball gobbled up. That'll do it. 3-1. So Frias comes in, gets the 3 outs. The big inning for him, and we're heading to the bottom of the 6th. Dodgers 4, Giants 3. DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BLUECREW for free entry. And by your Southern California Kia dealers. Visit MySoCalKia.com to learn more. Bottom of the 6th inning. Dodgers led 4-0. Giants fought their way back to make it 4-3. It'll be Peterson. Then we'll see about a hitter for Frias, and Frias is out in the on-deck circle, so we'll have to wait and see. Peterson not only made a spectacular catch and started a double play in the 1st inning, he doubled his last at-bat. 1 for 2. Angel Pagan was robbed by Peterson. That's a strike. 0-1. One ball and 1 strike. George Cantos picking up the pieces for Tim Lincecum, who allowed 4 runs and 8 hits. Chopper foul, 1-2. Peterson, when he doubled in the 3rd inning, it meant that he has now reached base safely 15 of the last 19 games. What is amazing, a young hitter is usually over anxious, but he's a pretty patient hitter. Peterson has walked 15 times. Lifts a breaking ball to right center field and deep. Would you believe he's hit it out? Jock Peterson's 3rd home run. He hit a breaking ball. It's a question when we look at it again, how far from the ground was that breaking ball? The Jock runs number 3. That's Brandon League all over him.
Number 77.
And the Dodgers lead 5-3. Young Jock, very popular player. Simply knows his place. He's quiet, unassuming. That's a strike to Frias. Take a look at the location. That thing was, in fact, you could see Susak's glove touch the ground. The ball was below the zone, and Jock just hit it out. A bunt down to get it. Contos. Play at first in time. So Peterson homers. Frias is out 1-3.
Jimmy Rollins.
And Jimmy Rollins coming up. So Jock Peterson enjoying the role as the regular center fielder. Little sheepish grin. Jimmy has walked. He lost a base hit on the diving catch by Maxwell, and last time up grounded out. Ball 1. For Contos, he would figure to be coming out. He's due to lead off the 7th inning. Missed. Ball 2. Two and one. Dodgers scored 4 times in the 3rd inning on 5 hits. But Brett Anderson could not get the 3rd out in the 5th inning. Giants scored 3. That's a ground ball to Panic. 2 down. And the batter will be Andre Ethier. So it's been Anderson relieved by Frias, Lincecum relieved by Contos. Game 1 of the 3-game series. Bumgarner and Kershaw tomorrow night. Vogelsong and Greinke the concluding game. Thursday is an open date, and then the Diamondbacks will be here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Greinke fresh from another great outing. Andre Ethier robbed of an extra base hit and a run batted in. Great stab of Ethier's line drive by Buster Posey in the 1st inning. Walked and struck out next to plate appearances. That's a strike. So Andre in a hole, 0-2. Five runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 6 hits for the Giants. Contos making 25 pitches. Fastball. Still 0-2. Boschi's team having won 4 of the last 5, arriving here 3.5 games back of the Dodgers. 0-2. Ball 1. Lincecum made 76 pitches in his 4 innings. Anderson made 74 pitches in 4 2/3 innings. And now he's settled into a battle of the bullpens. 1-2. Fastball hit the left. Going back on it is Aoki. So after the leadoff home run by Jock Peterson, the Dodgers go 1-2-3. But Peterson going after a breaking ball almost in the dirt, and he hits it into the seats in right center field, and the Dodgers lead 5-3. A little bit, and now after Frias had gotten to the mound and Gregor Blanco had been announced as the pinch hitter, Mattingly makes a move. He's had his left-hander Liberatore getting ready, and so he will bring Liberatore in, and we'll see whether Blanco stays in the game or not. We'll get that answer after we come back. Coast as Madison Bumgarner who had the greatest World Series in history against a Cy Young MVP award pitcher by the name of Kershaw. Well, they tangled up north and it was a draw, and they'll go after each other again right here tomorrow night. And for you, same time, same station. There are their numbers. They've each made 4 starts, and both not pitching as well as you'd imagine with ERAs over 4. Adam Liberatore coming in to pitch to Matt Duffy. Duffy, a local boy from Long Beach, appropriately enough went to Long Beach State. Matt proven to be a good hitter in the times that we've seen him. Very, very handy with the bat. And a strike. Duffy's a long drink of water. He's 6'2", maybe 170 pounds. Matt can play anywhere in the infield, second, short, third. And another strike. So Duffy bats for Blanco, who batted for Contos. And then it's Aoki and Panic, left-handers back to back. Time asked for by the catcher, Yasmani Grandal, as indicated by Eric Cooper. 0-2. Couple of local boys. Liberatore, born in Bellflower. Duffy at Long Beach. Liberatore went to school, however, at Tennessee Tech. Adam 6'3", 225. Up and down this year like so many of the Dodger bullpenners. 1-2. 2-2. Peterson shading Duffy slightly to right center, so the gap's in left center. Duffy arrived quickly. He was signed in 2012. 3-2. Duffy, Aoki, and Panic, and then Pagan. First two are left-handed, and Pagan switches. And then, of course, if it gets to him, you have Posey. 3-2 to Duffy. Got him. So Matt Duffy called out on strikes, and Liberatore wins that battle. 1 out.
Number 23, Nori Aoki.
Nori Aoki coming up. Aoki singled to the hole at short, hit into a force play and stole a base, and singled in that wild 5th inning. Giants got off the floor. They were down 4-0, got to 4-3. Peterson has made it 5-3. Foul ball. Pretty good fastball at 93, and it came right back in fastball alley. 0-1. And a breaking ball in there, so he's in a hole now. 0-2. Adam Liberatore trying to take care of Aoki. No balls, 2 strikes. Fastball had him on the move. 1-2. Aoki's about 5'9", 180, 33 years old. Went to Waseda University and then played for the Yakult Swallows, I believe they are. A couple of years with the Brewers, and here he is. He was a pitcher through high school and moved to the outfield at the university. Little chopper, Liberatore on it. 2 down. Another left-hand batter coming up, Joe Panik.
Number 12, Joe Panik.
Panik tonight flied to center, grounded to third, and doubled to right to drive in 1. Yimi Garcia gets up now in the Dodger bullpen. Five runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 6 hits for the Giants. Panik 1 for 3 and a strike on the corner. Panik, a wonderful young ball player. When the Giants lost Marco Scutaro, it looked like, well, they're going to have to wait a while because Scutaro had been such a valuable performer, and then they came up with Panik. Curveball. Kendrick is on it. So a nice 1-2-3 inning. Adam Liberatore in that duel for the pinch hitter gets Duffy to strike out. Then Aoki and Panik on ground balls, and the Dodgers still lead 5-3. Three Dodgers, bottom of the 7th inning. Yusmeiro Petit becomes the 3rd Giant pitcher, and he'll face Gonzalez, Kendrick, and Grandal in that order. High fly ball to center. Back goes Pagan, looking at the wall, sees he has room, and makes the catch. So a long fly ball to center, 1 away. Howie Kendrick coming up. Dodgers got 24 pitches out of Carlos Frias. Liberatore made 12 pitches in the 7th inning. The Liberatore turned in a good effort, a 1-2-3 inning. So here's Kendrick, 2 for 3. Single to left, single to right, fly to right. Susek out to talk to Petit. Kendrick spending 9 years over in the American League, though he has never faced Petit. And a strike, 0-2. Andre Ethier, Adrian Gonzalez, and Yasmani Grandal have all hit home runs in the past against Petit, and Jimmy Rollins has 2 against him. Curveball, slow roller, Crawford. Nice play. The Dodgers have been very quiet offensively since they scored the 4 runs on 5 hits in the 3rd inning. And then Peterson hit the home run in the 6th to give them the 5-3 lead. Pagan, Posey, and Maxwell will be due up in the 8th inning. Randall grounded out twice, struck out, and a strike. Yasmero Petit from Maracaibo in Venezuela. 6 feet and a big 250 pounds. When you ask Bruce Bochy about Petit being a starting pitcher, he said, I'd really like him more in long relief. Well, he's short relief tonight. Last September, Petit had a perfect game into the 9th inning against Arizona. The 27th batter, Eric Chavez, broke it up. That'll do it for Grandal. Dodgers tiptoe through the 7th inning. And at the end of 7, it's 5-3 Dodgers. Going to the 8th inning with 8 runs in the game. The busy boys have been Aoki with a couple of singles, stolen base, knocked in one and scored one. Howie Kendrick pretty much the same, and Jock Peterson with 2 extra base hits, a double and a home run. We've also had 7 pitchers in the game. Dodgers using Brett Anderson, Carlos Frias, and Adam Liberatore. Now Yimi Garcia. And for the Giants, Lincecum, Contos, and Petit. Yimi Garcia, 6'1", about 175. He's 24 years old. He'll be 25 in August. He was signed by the Dodgers as an international free agent about 5-6 years ago. He made his debut in the 8th inning last year against the Washington Nationals. Gave up a hit to the first batter he faced, Bryce Harper, but he also got a strikeout. Basically, very good fastball, slider, and a changeup. Angel Pagan Buster Posey, Justin Maxwell. As we mentioned at the very start of the game, the Giants are so much the better playing team when they have Pagan in center field. Ball one. Pagan has had a lot of problems, back problem especially, but when he's healthy, he's a winner. Angel Pagan was originally signed by the Mets. 1-1. Pagan from Puerto Rico. He's from a tough neighborhood, Rio Piedras, gangs and drugs, but he was a buddy of Felix Trinidad, watching him work out. Ex-world champ. 1-2. So Pagan trained like a fighter to be a baseball player. He liked to box, but not to be a fighter. Angel said he remembers when his dad would have to borrow money from somebody to buy some food for the family. A poor, very, very rough neighborhood. Boy, that was a good slider in on the hand. That thing jumped. Like 95. But that just moved in on him. When you look at it, you don't see it on that view, but sitting up here, that thing exploded. 1-2. Two and two. Boy, I guess that previous pitch was a fastball with a lot of movement. 2-2. Wow, that was a terrific changeup. After all those 95s, Yimi Garcia pulling the string, and he just missed. You see Grandal trying to frame it, but Cooper would not be fooled. So 3-2 to Angel Pagan with Buster Posey on deck. Got him outside corner. He knew it. So Garcia, a couple of 95s, then the change, and then back with a 94, and Pagan is done. So one out in the eighth inning, and now Buster Posey flied to right, flied to center, and walked. And a strike. Garcia, no nonsense. He goes right after the hitter. Jimmy was in 8 games for the Dodgers last year. Basically throwing 94, 95, and boy, that was a heck of a changeup he threw to Pagan, even though it was ruled a ball. 1-1. 2-1. Again, that was off speed at 83. Fastball hit to the hole. Base hit. So Posey takes a mid-90s fastball and grounds it into left field. So Justin Maxwell coming up, and the tying run at the plate. Uribe to his left, Rollins to his right, and the ball finds its way through. Dodgers 5 runs, 9 hits. Giants 3 runs, 7 hits. And now here's Maxwell. Double, fly to center, hit back to the box. Honeycutt on the phone. Dodgers have used Frias, Liberatore, and Garcia. Slider for sure. 0-1. Paco Rodriguez gets up in the Dodger bullpen. Maxwell very hot with the bat, hitting .310. Kind of uppercutting a high fastball. Justin Maxwell, the interesting thing about him, his father, a dentist to the president and the first lady. His father and mother were dentists in the Navy. Slider, 1-2. His father retired as a captain. His mom retired as a commander. So they handled the dental care for Bill Clinton and his family, Al Gore and his family, George Bush, his family. Meanwhile, Posey at first, 1 out, 8th inning, 5-3 Dodgers. Whoa, he tried to uppercut that. So Maxwell was trying to hit that out. No two ways about that. And strikes out instead. Up there, yep. So 2 strikeouts here in the 8th inning. And Andrew Susac will check in. 5 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, 3 runs, 7 hits for the Giants, and we're in the 8th. Remember, the Giants swept the Dodgers up north all 3 games. Dodgers trying to return the favor. Fastball fouled away. The paid attendance tonight, 46,704. 46,704. Tomorrow night might be a larger crowd with Madison Bumgarner going against Clayton Kershaw. No balls and 1 strike. As usual, Kershaw and Ellis shoulder to shoulder. Whether Ellis catches or not remains to be seen. One thing, when Bumgarner pitches, Grandal would bat right-handed. He's hitting .333 right, 200 left. So we'll see. 2-1 to Andrew Susac, 0 for 3. Casey McGee 0 for 3 on deck. Two balls, 1 strike. Fastball. 2-2. Eric Cooper shaken up a little bit on the foul ball, right into the mask. Eric, as we said, has called 3 no-hitters, one of them a perfect game. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Posey at first. Slider hit to right center, but it's a room curve that's coming over the leaf here, and that's that. No runs, 1 hit, a man left. So the Dodger bullpen, Messrs. Frias, Liberatore, and Garcia holding the Giants, and the Dodgers lead 5-3. Dodger Baseball on Sportsnet LA is brought to you by Jack in the Box. Jack's hottest sandwich is back. Head to Jack in the Box for Jack's Blazing Chicken Sandwich. And by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Choose Nissan.com. Dodgers take a 5-3 lead into the bottom of the 8th inning. It will be Scott Van Slyke who batted for Carl Crawford. Crawford tripled in the 2nd inning, and apparently a tightness in the side. Meanwhile, Van Slyke, a fly ball, that's all it is, to Aoki. 1 pitch, 1 away. So Crawford had to come out, and Van Slyke batted for him and singled. So Scott's 1 for 3. Juan Uribe now checking in against Petit. Yosmero from Venezuela against Uribe from the Dominican. Fastball line to right and a good sinking try, but no cigar. Maxwell did make that catch earlier on a ball hit by Jimmy Rollins, but not this time. So a 1-out single that gives Uribe a walk and 2 singles. It was that close enough. He's a very impressive player, Justin Maxwell. We can tell you they're in the 8th inning. The Astros and the Padres are all tied up 4-4. Well, Maxwell played for Houston. Well, here's Young Jock, popped up, doubled to right and homered to right center. Strike. The home run ball, a breaking ball that was almost in the dirt. Just take a look at the location on this pitch. Down there, you see the catcher Susak's mitt actually touched the dirt trying to receive it. Instead, Jock hits it in the seats. 1 ball and 1 strike. Justin Turner now comes out on deck. Turner would bat for Garcia, and they're asking Chris Hatcher then to close it up. There's Hatch getting ready. Dodgers have been pretty aggressive. They have 10 hits. 5 of the 10 hits on the first pitch. 1 ball and 1 strike. Peterson hitting a very comfortable .296. Looking ahead, the Giants are due to send up McGee, Crawford, and the pitcher. Three and 1 to Jock. Meanwhile, Gonzalez and Garcia, each alone in his thoughts. Scott Van Slyke plucking hairs. Woo. Fastball up and in. 3 and 2 to Jock. Making sure, checking with Cooper that he swung at a strike. Yosmero Petit was originally signed by the New York Mets. Time. We talked earlier about Petit near perfect game. That was 2013. He became the 12th player in Major League history to lose a perfect game with 2 out in the 9th. There goes Uribe. The pitch is ball 4. So with 1 out, the Dodgers have runners at first and second, and Justin Turner will be coming up. By the way, if you wonder what's ahead for the Dodgers, well, the Giants here tomorrow night That's Kershaw and Bumgarner. Wednesday night, it'll be the Giants with Vogelsong against Greinke. Thursday is an off day, and the weekend with the Arizona Diamondbacks. You may remember the Dodgers lost 2 out of 3 in Arizona when they met for the first time. So here's Justin with that .286 average, but a big .429 at home. 2 on, 1 out. Turner with Rollins on deck. And a high fly ball to center, going back is Pagan, still going back at the wall. It's gone. Turner has done it again. Justin Turner, when you think about it, is an incredible player. He doesn't play every day, but he sure does put dents in the opposition when he does. So a big 3-run home run, and the Dodgers now lead 8-3. Fastball right out over the middle of the plate. Pagan going as far as he can go. No chance. The Dodgers watching the pink scraper go out, and now they have a 5-run lead. Ball 1 to Jimmy Rollins. Oh, by the way, Turner walked up there and hit the first pitch. So the Dodgers with 11 hits, 6 of the 11 on the first pitch. A very, very aggressive team tonight in their first game at home. And Rollins pulls one foul. 1-1. So Uribe single, Peterson walk, Turner lowers the boom. Turner's first home run of the year. We mentioned he was hitting .429 here at Dodger Stadium. 2-1. So the Dodgers trying to have their home record 9-1. As Turner with a big swing. Bill Hayes and Bruce Bochy downcast for the moment. Tomorrow night, Madison Bumgarner and Clayton Kershaw. Kershaw hoping to get some runs tomorrow. Same for Bumgarner, who has not gotten very many this year either. 2-2. Rollins holds up 3-2 to Jimmy. Turner happy about everything, coming off the bench, hitting that big home run. And ball 4 to Jimmy Rollins. Yusmeiro Petit came into the game with an ERA of 3.7, and he had allowed 1 home run. Javier Lopez is going to be called in to face Andre Ethier after 3 runs in the inning. So bad inning for Yusmeiro Petit, and we'll be right back. streaming sports service is celebrating 13 years. So watch every out-of-market game live or on demand in true HD on over 400 mobile and connected devices. Real-time highlights, live look-ins, pitch tracking widget, and more. Every night on every device. Visit MLB.tv for details. Javier Lopez has a degree in psychology from the University of Virginia. That has to come in handy for a reliever. As usual, a good ERA, 2.2. His wife has a doctorate in psychology, but it has not been easy. Javi has really bounced around. 0-1 to Andre Ethier. Ethier tonight robbed of an extra base hit and a run batted in. A diving one-hand grab of his line drive by Buster Posey. Walked and scored a run. Struck out and flied to left. On 1. Big chopper to Panic. They will get one. They will not get another. So the inning is still alive for Adrian Gonzalez. Javi Lopez, in his 13 years, has bounced among 12 different teams. 4 major league teams, including the Giants, and 8 minor league teams. We just think about what that does to family life as he faces Gonzalez. Gonzalez single to center, single to left, scored a run, grounded out, fly to center. That's just off the plate. So you have as tough a left-hander against left-hand pitching against a knowledgeable hitter, but Gonzalez is batting only 182 against Lopez. Javi is just tough. Probably the one left-hand hitter who might handle him in the Dodger lineup would have been Carl Crawford. Crawford hitting .333 against him with 3 doubles, but Carl out with a sore side. Not sure what else to say about that until we hear more. 1-2. Shows you another difference between home and road. When the Dodgers were in San Francisco, they lost all 3. With runners in scoring position, they were 1 for 15. Tonight at home, the Dodgers are 5 for 11 with runners in scoring position. 1-2. Snakes that thing. They're going to check, no swing. So Lopez and Gonzalez. Adrian, as you know, a wonderful hitter, but Lopez remarkably tough against left-hand batters. Little roller foul. Lopez, when he came to San Francisco, really found himself a home. He became the toughest left-hand pitcher against left-hand batters in the National League. Through last year, left-handers were hitting 164 against him. 2-2. Fastball just off the corner. Everything sidearm, basically been away. Runner going, pitch in on the hands. So all of the others were away. That time he tried to tie up Adrian. 3-2. and a comebacker. So Lopez beats another left-handed hitter, and not that Adrian Gonzalez is just another left-hand hitter. However, Justin Turner reached in, hits a 3-run home run, and at the end of 8, Dodgers lead 8-3. It's 8-3. Chris Hatcher becomes the 5th Dodger pitcher. Brett Anderson 4 2/3, and then Frias, Liberatore, Garcia, and Hatcher. Chris Hatcher in his last game Saturday at San Diego worked 1 inning, struck out 3. Hatcher has 12 strikeouts in his last 6 1/3 innings. His strikeout to walk ratio is really impressive. 12 strikeouts and 2 walks. Casey McGee struck out, grounded out, fouled out to right. Fastball missed, ball 1. Hatcher perhaps not quite as much, but he certainly reminds you of Josh Colmenter of Arizona, pitching directly over the top. Snapped that in at 95. Chris from Kinston, North Carolina, went to North Carolina Wilmington and was drafted by the Marlins. That's a strike. 1 2. He pitches downhill, as they say, putting all the heat on McGee. Got him. So McGee strikes out a second time, goes 0 for 4. That was pretty good fastballs, and sends McGee going back, more talking to himself. So 3 of the last 5 batters for the Giants have struck out. 1 out in the 9th. Brandon Crawford walked twice, grounded out. Brandon Belt is on deck. And tomorrow night it will be Madison Bumgarner talking to Buster Posey. High fly ball, very playable. Peterson is right there. So Hatcher nails 2, and now Brandon Belt will bat for Petit. Giants using their 4th pinch hitter. Sanchez singled. Remember, Blanco was announced, then Duffy hit for him, and Duffy called out on strikes. So Brandon Belt, 2 out, 9th inning. Dodgers trying to push the Giants 4.5 back. Ball 1. 2-0. Brandon Belt hitting .233, 4 RBIs. He has 1 extra base hit, a double. Giants playing their 20th game. 2-1. Remember, the Giants started off the year playing 14 straight games, and every team they played was above 500. Hatcher throwing very hard. That last pitch, 97. 2-1. They took a lot off. 97 and 96. Three balls, 1 strike. So the crowd of 46,704 up and at him now, asking Hatcher to turn out the lights. Dodgers trying to have their home record 9-1. And ball 4. So that'll bring up the leadoff man and a very tough man to pitch to. Nori Aoki hitting .313, has 2 singles, stole a base. Two out in the 9th, 8-3 Dodgers. There goes Belt. Defensive indifference. No stolen base. Justin Turner walk up and hit the first pitch for a 3-run home run. What a way to say hello to the Giants. Fastball, and that ought to do it. So Aoki grounds out. Giants get a walk, nothing else. 8 runs, 11 hits, no errors for the Dodgers. Home runs by Peterson and by Turner. Peterson had a huge night. A walk, a double, the home run. He's certainly the player of the game, making an amazing play in the first inning. First, the catch on Pagan, hitting the relay May Rollins, and the double play to double up Aoki. And then, adding to it all, clearing the right field fence with a breaking ball that looked inches off the ground. So a big night as the Dodgers come home with a win. Settle in nicely. It was Frias, Liberatore, Garcia, and Hatcher. Once again, it's the Dodger bullpen riding to the rescue. Tomorrow night, Madison Bumgarner and Clayton Kershaw. We'll talk to you then. Till then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.